5:17 local time, Northern Arabian Sea. Inside the operations center of a U.S. naval destroyer, the room is almost completely dark, lit only by the cold glow of radar screens and sonar displays. Operators sit still at their stations, headsets pressed tight against their ears, eyes locked on the data in front of them. The ship is moving at a steady transit speed, part of a three-vessel formation crossing calm, open water. Then something changes. A faint metallic rhythm slips into the headphones of the sonar operator. It is not random. It is not biological. It is controlled, mechanical. Transient contact bearing 071. The operator leans closer to the console, filtering the signal through the ship's towed array sonar. Far behind the destroyer, hundreds of meters of highly sensitive hydrophones trail silently through the water, listening to every sound the ocean carries. Then the sound returns. Two clear rotations. Twin propeller tones moving slowly somewhere in deep water. Possible submerged vessel screw noise, the operator reports. No one raises their voice. In this room, calm is part of the procedure. Seconds later, the signal becomes sharper. The contact is not drifting with the current. It is not moving like civilian traffic. The rhythm is steady, controlled, deliberate. Estimated range, 9 nautical miles. Depth unknown. The tactical display officer marks the contact on screen. Track Sierra 2-1. Another officer checks nearby vessel traffic. No merchant ship matches the bearing. No friendly underwater craft is scheduled to operate in this sector. On the bridge, the captain receives the update. Course remains steady. Speed increases slightly. The two other U.S. vessels in formation, a guided cruiser and a second destroyer, receive the same data through the fleet network. Within seconds, the formation tightens. 3 ships shift subtly across open water, adjusting distance and spacing without a single visible signal. 5:18. The sonar operator raises one hand again. A second acoustic contact appears. Another set of propeller tones forms on the spectrum analyzer. The pitch is slightly different. The rotation is slightly faster. 2 submerged vessels. The operations center becomes even quieter. No alarms, no rushing footsteps, only the soft tap of keyboards and short, precise reports moving from station to station. Contact 2, bearing 085. The officer of the deck authorizes an active sonar pulse. The destroyer's hull-mounted sonar sends a powerful ping through the sea, spreading outward like a sharp wave through the water. For a moment, the ocean answers. An echo returns, a long shape below the surface. Depth approximately 120 meters. Submerged contact confirmed. The classification officer studies the acoustic profile. 5-blade propeller pattern. Uneven shaft harmonics. Then another faint sound flickers across the sonar display. Not a propeller, a short metallic movement. The sonar operator narrows the frequency filter. The sound repeats. A hollow sliding noise followed by a brief hydraulic pulse. His eyes sharpen. Tube hatch opening. For half a second, no one says a word. Everyone in the room understands exactly what that sound means. Somewhere beneath the surface, one of the submerged vessels has opened a forward launch tube. The tactical officer marks the estimated position on the map. Distance now 8 nautical miles, bearing holding steady. A new order moves quietly through the operations center. Readiness level 3, set stations. Across the ship, sailors move into position. Defensive systems come online. The electronic surveillance suite begins searching for signals. Long-range optical cameras turn slowly toward the horizon. On the bridge above, the captain studies the tactical display. Still no visual contact, only sound. 5:19. The sonar operator suddenly sits upright. A harsh burst of cavitation floods his headset. A propeller spinning at high speed. Rapid acceleration through the water. High-speed underwater contact. Release detected. Every screen in the operations center updates at once. A narrow acoustic trail cuts through the water, heading directly toward the formation. Speed increasing, 40 knots. Then another signal appears, and another. 3 separate cavitation trails break across the sonar display. 3 incoming underwater contacts, 3 different paths, all closing toward the U.S. formation. The tactical officer reacts instantly. Multiple high-speed contacts confirmed. Repeat, confirmed. The message moves through the secure fleet data link in seconds. All 3 U.S. ships now understand what is approaching from beneath the surface. From the bridge, the captain's voice comes over the circuit. Calm, focused, completely controlled. Helm, hard starboard. Deploy countermeasures. Outside, the destroyer begins a sharp turn. Thousands of tons of steel shift across the sea, carving a wide white wake behind the hull. From the stern, a compact device drops into the water and disappears below the surface, still connected to the ship by a long cable. An acoustic decoy. Its purpose is simple: sound bigger, louder, and more tempting than the real ship. Inside the operations center, the sonar operator watches the incoming tracks move across the screen. 5 nautical miles, 4, 3. Beneath the surface of the northern Arabian Sea, 3 high-speed contacts cut through the black water, each one following sound, motion, and vibration. And somewhere deeper ahead, the submerged vessel that released them is already turning away. 5:20 local time. Inside the operations center, the sonar display fills with movement. 3 narrow acoustic trails streak across the screen, each one moving fast, each one closing on the U.S. formation. The cavitation signatures are clear now. High-speed underwater projectiles are moving through the water column with purpose. The sonar operator keeps his voice steady. 3 contacts confirmed, bearing 073-082-090. Each one is aligned with a different ship. The destroyer continues its evasive turn, engines driving harder as the helm pulls the vessel sharply to starboard. The cruiser at the center of the formation increases speed as well, while the third ship angles away, widening the distance between them. The formation separates with precision: 3 ships, 3 tracks, 3 different escape paths. On the sonar display, the range markers continue to fall: 5 nautical miles. 4. The tactical officer calculates the closing speed: 45 knots. At that pace, the contacts will reach the formation within minutes. Deploy Nixie. At the stern of the destroyer, a small cylindrical device slides into the sea. A cable unspools behind it as the decoy begins broadcasting a powerful acoustic signature through the water. A false target, louder than the real one. Inside the operations center, the sonar operator watches the first incoming contact shift slightly, then it shifts again. The track begins to bend away from the destroyer's hull. It is following the decoy. 1 contact diverted, the operator reports, but the other 2 continue on course. The cruiser's captain receives the update on his tactical display. 2 high-speed contacts are still closing on separate ships. Distance: 3 nautical miles. The cruiser accelerates to flank speed. Its engines push harder as the massive hull begins a tight, evasive maneuver. On the flight deck, sailors brace themselves as the ship leans heavily into the turn. Below the waterline, the remaining contacts continue their pursuit. Each one is guided by sound. Each one is listening for the rhythm of spinning propellers. Inside the destroyer's operations center, another crew member releases a second acoustic countermeasure. A new decoy splashes into the sea and begins broadcasting another artificial signature across the water. Seconds pass. On the sonar display, the second high-speed contact begins to drift. For a brief moment, it hesitates, its guidance system comparing the sounds moving through the water. One signal belongs to the real ship, the other is artificial, louder and closer. Then the track bends. At first, only slightly, then sharply. The incoming contact turns away from the naval vessel and drops toward the decoy. Second contact diverted. But the third one does not change course. Its line remains perfectly steady, aimed directly toward the cruiser. Range now under 2 nautical miles. The cruiser continues its hard turn, engines pushed to maximum output. Water surges along the hull as the ship cuts across the predicted path, forcing every second to matter. Inside the cruiser's own operations center, the sonar team watches the contact closing fast. Range: 1.8 miles. On the bridge, almost no one speaks. Only short navigation commands, helm corrections, engine orders. The captain studies the tactical display. The timing has to be exact. Too early and the contact may ignore the false signal. Too late and there may be no room left to maneuver. Release second decoy. From the cruiser's stern, another acoustic device drops into the sea and begins transmitting. It trails behind the ship, sending out a powerful imitation of a large vessel's propeller signature. The incoming contact continues forward. Range: 1 mile, 800 yards, 700. Then the sonar operator notices a change. The track wavers. For a moment, the guidance system appears to search the water around it, comparing both sound sources. Then the line shifts, slowly at first, then with sudden certainty. The contact veers away from the cruiser and dives toward the decoy. 5 seconds later, the ocean erupts behind the ship. A violent underwater burst sends a column of white water rising into the air off the cruiser's stern. The shockwave rolls across the sea surface, and broken pieces of the decoy scatter across the waves. Inside the operations center, no one celebrates. They keep listening. Because in moments like this, one contact is rarely the only one. The sonar operator scans the spectrum again. Seconds later, the first diverted contact reaches the destroyer's decoy. Another deep burst rolls beneath the surface. Then the second. 3 underwater impacts. 3 incoming contacts removed from the threat picture. For a brief moment, the sea becomes quiet again. But the tactical officer knows the most dangerous part may still be ahead. Because the submerged vessel that released them is still somewhere below. And now it knows exactly where the American ships are. 5:22 local time. Above the formation, the ocean suddenly comes alive with movement. On the flight deck of the lead destroyer, a gray MH-60R Seahawk helicopter is already powered up, its twin engines whining at full force. Deck crew crouch low against the rotor wash as the aircraft lifts from the deck and climbs into the humid morning air. Inside the cockpit, the pilots level out at 200 feet above the waterline. The mission is clear: find the submerged vessel. Behind them, the destroyer's flight deck shrinks quickly as the Seahawk accelerates toward the suspected release point of the incoming contacts. The helicopter's sensor operator activates the onboard acoustic processor, linking directly into the destroyer's sonar network. From above, the sea looks calm, almost empty, but beneath that surface, something is moving. The Seahawk banks left and begins deploying sonobuoys. One by one, small cylindrical sensors drop from the aircraft's dispenser racks and fall toward the water below. Each one hits the surface, disappears beneath it, and begins listening. Each buoy releases a hydrophone beneath the surface, instantly becoming part of a wide network of underwater microphones. Within seconds, acoustic data begins streaming back to the helicopter. A grid forms across the sea. Each buoy listens, each buoy transmits, each buoy adds another piece to the picture forming beneath the surface. The sensor operator studies the incoming signals on his screen. Hundreds of tiny frequency spikes move across the acoustic spectrum as the system filters out ocean noise, marine life, and distant shipping. Then one signal stands out. Low frequency, metallic, a rotating propeller. Contact, the operator says quietly. Bearing 112. The submerged vessel is moving again, and this time it is no longer moving slowly. It is accelerating. Beneath the surface, the Iranian submarine descends deeper into the water column. Its engines push harder as it tries to move away from the danger area. The Seahawk adjusts course immediately. The helicopter drops slightly in altitude, its nose turning toward the new bearing. More sonobuoys fall into the sea, expanding the listening net. The pattern tightens around the suspected position of the submarine. Within moments, the acoustic picture becomes clearer. Speed, 15 knots. Depth, approximately 150 meters. Course, moving away from the American formation. The submarine has already made its move. Now it is trying to disappear. Inside the helicopter, the sensor operator switches the system to active mode. One of the buoys sends a sharp sonar pulse into the dark water below. Seconds later, the echo returns. A long steel hull, clear underwater contact. The acoustic processor confirms it. Target classified, submarine. The pilots exchange a quick glance, but neither of them says anything. They already know what comes next. The Seahawk settles into a steady hover 200 feet above the ocean. Beneath the fuselage, the aircraft's bay doors slide open. Inside is a single Mark 54 lightweight underwater system. Compact, fast, built to track submerged threats. The pilot holds the aircraft steady. The sensor operator confirms the solution. The target is still moving, still trying to get away, but the distance and timing are now working against it. 12 miles away, the three American ships continue maneuvering across the sea. Their sonar arrays remain active, scanning the surrounding water for any additional contacts. Inside the destroyer's operations center, the tactical officer watches the helicopter's data feed appear on his display. The Seahawk has the contact. Now the question is whether the submarine realizes it. Above the water, the helicopter banks into position. The pilot lines up with the predicted path of the submarine below. The sensor operator speaks into the intercom. Solution steady. Target depth 150 meters. A green light flashes on the control panel. The helicopter holds steady for one final moment. Then the release switch is pressed. The Mark 54 drops from the Seahawk and falls through the air. 1 second later, it hits the water with a heavy splash and disappears beneath the surface. For several seconds, there is only silence. Then its motor activates underwater, the propeller begins spinning, the guidance system comes online, the system begins its search pattern. Below the surface, two machines are now moving through the darkness, one trying to escape, one closing in. Inside the Seahawk, the acoustic display lights up as the Mark 54's onboard sonar begins scanning for its target. The submarine is still running, but the distance between them is shrinking fast. In the deep water below, the pursuit has begun. 5:24 local time. Beneath the surface of the Arabian Sea, the Mark 54 cuts through dark water at high speed. Its onboard sonar begins searching immediately, sending rapid acoustic pulses into the surrounding ocean. The signals travel outward through layers of cold and warm water before bouncing back toward the system's receiver. For several seconds, it detects nothing. Only the distant sound of propellers from the American ships above. Then a stronger return appears, a metallic hull in motion. The guidance computer adjusts course, shifting a few degrees to port. Speed increases. It has found something. Inside the MH-60R Seahawk circling overhead, the sensor operator watches acoustic data stream across his screen. The helicopter's processors are listening to the underwater transmissions through nearby sonobuoys. The signal is faint, but it is unmistakable. The Mark 54 has acquired a contact. Below them, the Iranian submarine continues trying to get away. Its commander has already taken the vessel deeper, pushing toward the lower thermal layer, where changes in water temperature can distort sonar signals and make tracking more difficult. The engines are working harder now as the submarine angles away from the American formation. But speed creates noise, and noise travels. The Seahawk pilot banks slightly, keeping the contact area centered beneath the aircraft. Target still moving, the sensor operator reports. Depth approximately 160 meters. Below the surface, the pursuing system continues closing the distance. Inside the submarine, warning tones begin to sound. The sonar operator has detected something new in the water behind them. Fast, high frequency, getting closer, closing fast. High-speed contact in the water, the sonar operator reports to the submarine's control room. The submarine commander reacts immediately. Deploy countermeasures. From the rear of the submarine, a defensive acoustic decoy releases into the water. The device begins broadcasting a loud artificial signature designed to pull the incoming system away from the submarine's actual position. At the same moment, the submarine begins a sharp, evasive turn. Ballast tanks shift. The hull tilts. The vessel dives deeper, 180 meters, then 200. Inside the Seahawk, the acoustic display suddenly becomes chaotic. Two sound sources now appear beneath the surface, one strong, one artificial. The onboard guidance system analyzes both signals, comparing frequencies, engine harmonics, and propeller patterns. For a moment, the pursuing unit appears to hesitate. Then it chooses. The track turns sharply to starboard. It ignores the decoy. The real submarine is still louder, still moving, still trying to escape. Inside the submarine, the sonar operator hears the change instantly. It is still tracking us. The commander grips the edge of the control console. Full power! The submarine's engines surge. The vessel tries to outrun the incoming system, but the physics are no longer in its favor. The Mark 54 accelerates again. Distance shrinking, 800 meters, 600. Inside the Seahawk, the crew remains silent. They watch the acoustic data update in real time as the contact lines move closer together on the display. Below them, two machines race through deep water. 500 meters, 400. Inside the submarine, the crew braces as the commander orders another turn. But the pursuing system adjusts again. Its guidance computer compensates almost instantly. 300 meters, 200. For one brief moment, the acoustic signal spikes across every listening buoy in the area. Then the ocean erupts. A deep underwater burst tears through the water column near the submarine. A powerful pressure wave expands outward through the sea, followed by a violent cloud of gas and debris. Above the surface, the Seahawk crew sees the water rise as a wide column of bubbles pushes upward toward daylight. Fragments of dark metal briefly break the surface, then disappear back into the waves. Inside the helicopter, the acoustic screens suddenly go quiet. The steady propeller sound that had filled the spectrum for the past several minutes is gone. Only fading echoes remain. The sensor operator studies the display carefully. No propulsion noise, no movement, no return signal. He keys his microphone. Contact lost. Possible submarine neutralized. Below them, the sea slowly begins to calm. But the Seahawk remains circling overhead. Because in underwater operations, silence can mean many things. And the ocean is still listening. 5:26 local time. The Arabian Sea grows quiet again. From 200 feet above the water, the MH-60R Seahawk continues its slow orbit over the impact area. Below the helicopter, a wide circle of disturbed water spreads outward from the point where the underwater burst occurred moments earlier. A column of air bubbles rises from the depths, then fades. Inside the helicopter, the sensor operator studies the acoustic feed streaming through the sonobuoy network. Dozens of hydrophones remain suspended beneath the surface, listening carefully to everything moving through the water column. For several seconds, there is nothing. No propeller rhythm, no mechanical noise, no cavitation, only the natural sound of the ocean. The operator switches frequency bands and checks the entire spectrum again. Still nothing. He keys the radio. Negative propulsion noise. Target contact not reacquired. 12 miles away, the three American ships maintain their defensive formation. Their sonar arrays remain deployed, sweeping the surrounding waters in long arcs as the ships move steadily through the sea. Inside the lead destroyer's operations center, the tactical display shows the Seahawk's orbit above the suspected submarine position. The acoustic tracks from the earlier incoming contacts have disappeared, leaving only fading sonar echoes from the underwater burst. The tactical officer studies the screen for several seconds. Any additional contacts? The sonar operator shakes his head. No new screw noise detected. Another officer checks the long-range acoustic sensors trailing behind the formation. The towed array remains silent. If another submarine were nearby, its propeller rhythm would almost certainly appear somewhere in the spectrum. But nothing does. Back inside the Seahawk, the crew releases 2 more sonobuoys, expanding the listening field another mile in every direction. Each buoy hits the water, slips beneath the surface, and immediately begins sending underwater audio back to the aircraft. The sensor operator studies the incoming signals. Still nothing. The submarine that released the earlier underwater systems has disappeared from the acoustic picture. But no one inside the helicopter assumes the situation is over. Submarines are built to hide in silence. And beneath the ocean, silence can cover almost anything. 5:29 local time. The Seahawk slowly descends to 150 feet, its rotor wash spreading ripples across the surface below. The pilot positions the helicopter directly above the widening circle of bubbles, still rising from the depths. For a moment, the aircraft holds almost perfectly still. The sensor operator activates the forward-looking infrared camera and angles it down toward the water. The system scans the surface for heat differences, machinery traces, oil or debris rising from below. Then something faint appears on the screen, a thin dark patch spreading slowly across the water. Oil. Possible fuel leak, the operator reports. The Seahawk circles the area once more, cameras recording every detail. The live video feed streams back to the destroyer, where intelligence officers begin reviewing the images frame by frame. Below the surface, fragments continue drifting upward from the site of the underwater burst. Small pieces of metal, insulation. Then one larger panel briefly breaks the surface before rolling back beneath the waves. Inside the destroyer's operations center, the captain watches the live feed in silence. Every encounter at sea becomes a record. Every radar return, every sonar track, every second of video. All of it is stored. All of it will be studied later. 5:32 local time. The Seahawk pilot receives a new instruction. Return to formation. The helicopter banks gently away from the debris field and begins flying back toward the American ships waiting on the horizon. Behind it, the sonobuoys remain scattered across the water, still listening for anything that might return from the deep. Nothing does. Within minutes, the Seahawk approaches the lead destroyer. Deck crews are already in position, their bright helmets visible against the gray steel deck as the helicopter descends toward the landing circle. The aircraft settles down with a heavy thud. The rotors begin to slow. The engines wind down. Inside the operations center, the sonar team continues scanning the surrounding ocean for nearly 30 more minutes. The formation holds its course and speed while every sensor remains active. But the result never changes. No propulsion noise, no returning contact, no new underwater tracks, only empty water beneath the formation. The tactical officer marks the final entry in the log. 3 incoming underwater systems detected. 3 diverted or neutralized. 1 opposing submerged vessel engaged. Contact no longer detected. On the bridge, the captain looks out across the sea. The surface is calm again. But somewhere below, in the darkness beneath the waves, the remains of a damaged submarine are slowly settling into the deep. The entire encounter lasted less than 10 minutes. No warning, no radio call, no visual contact, only sound, pressure, and decisions made in seconds. And in that silent battlefield beneath the surface, the outcome was decided long before anyone above the water ever saw a thing.